All right, good afternoon. We're going to call the February 6th, 2024 Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. First item is the approval of the January 2nd meeting minutes. Are there any changes or motion to accept?
Move to accept.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. We have one item of old business, the request of Atlas Commons LLC owner for property located on 581 Lafayette Road, requesting site plan review approval for two four-story additions to the existing building that will total 72 residential units with associated site improvements, including lighting, utilities, landscaping, and stormwater treatment management. Said property is located on Assessor Map 229, Lot 8B, and lies within the Gateway Corridor District. Once again, you are the whole show to yourself. So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Shagnon from Haley Ward. With me here today is Marie Bodie from McNabb Properties, Terrence Parker, landscape architect, Mark McNabb, project applicant, and Tracy Kozak, project architect. We received your comments yesterday and responded today in paper, so you should have a cover letter, a set of civil plans, a landscape plan, and some building plans. So if everybody has all those things, then we'll get right to it, go through the comments, if that's appropriate, Mr. Chairman?
yes, please, thanks.
Okay, first comment is that staff will require a document of support from the superintendent to use the high school land for public realm improvements. And that we understand and will be provided prior to the planning board submission. So we are currently working on that, but before we go to planning board, we understand that's going to be required. Staff would like the project to be completed. What's that? That's the document from the superintendent that you're still in process maybe of the fine details of the concept of doing the public realm improvements
I thought the public
school
realm
property.
I thought the school property, public realm, we're in dialogue with the school. We're representing that the school department and us will come to some agreement on that, and our plan's conditional upon that. But they have to decide, do they want to take the monetary, do they want to take the specific? That has to go into their big plan. They're supportive of where we are, and that was our understanding through an email chain that we could proceed forward with that being a condition on our plan. That was my understanding.
So I think what we're saying is that there's two things, I guess. The one is the school's on board with doing it.
Right.
Obviously, the superintendent and the city manager agree that's how they want to use the city property. And the second thing is how it's going to be done in terms of what the layout and all that is and who's going to do it. And I think we heard from you or the school. We just need to know who's going to do it. And we'd like to know at TAC, before it goes to the planning board, that you got it all worked out. If you come back, if for some reason it's going to take longer, then we'll talk about it then. We don't just have any details at this point from the school. So we want that conversation to happen with the superintendent here at TAC.
So what we were saying is that those conversations would be ongoing. We have a concept plan, so if the plan goes forward, why would we need to come back to TAC? So that would be our...
We don't know that the plan's going forward, I guess, at TAC.
Yeah, right, if it doesn't...
But it's a
move forward.
condition.
Well, let's see where we get.
Yep.
If everything else is buttoned up and there's nothing else, then we can talk about it. But
Okay.
Yep, and then staff would like the project to be completed by the applicant rather than a monetary contribution. I don't know who made that comment, but in the course of talking to the school department, they're planning on doing some infrastructure improvements that they're just have an RFP out for. So there's discussion about whether it makes sense to incorporate some of this potential work in that bid that would go out, because then it could be done all at once, less disruptive, and at that point, Mark would just make a contribution. So that's why the two options are presented. So
Okay.
as it goes further, we would nail that down.
But it was always public realm. The school department was saying that they need public realm connections to the high school. You know, there's lots of paths through woods and lots of
Yeah.
and they just wanted to make sure that comprehensively, we only have found in this instant many times is a day can turn into 6 months. And in that process, you know, we want it to be a condition. A project like this takes about 8 months to do architecture and engineering. It's 6, 7, 800,000. So a journey like this takes a really long time. I mean, it's not dissimilar to when we did High Street and Ladd Street on One Congress, where I wanted to make these improvements, and it took a while for the city to catch up. In that instance, I didn't need it. It was a beautification project, but we represented it, and we were able to continue them both going forward. So, you know, in this instance, I'm committing that we're doing a public realm improvement to connect to the high school, and it would be a condition we would request, and if that doesn't come out to be true or needs to be modified, then we would do a modification to the planning board and say, hey, listen, the school board, you know, we can't go forward until that condition's met, you know, on the approval. And if something happened and the school came out, you know, 3 months, 6 months and said, look, the only thing we're going to do is approve, we want you to pay $100,000 or $200,000 towards this grand plan, then in that case, we'd go back to the planning board and say, here's what they wanted. The only thing that's tough when we're trying to do these public-private things is to make them contingent upon, to stop the cogs running, because the amount of work is extensive to move projects like this forward. So we can revisit it, but I just wanted everyone to have that narrative that we're not trying to get away with anything. It's just that it's a very slow machine. John, go ahead.
Okay. So the next comment was, please connect the trail to existing infrastructure. So in the previous plan, the trail did kind of end. But the purpose of that, or the reason for that, was because of talking to the school about how it's going to connect in. But we show it now, for the purpose of moving this forward, as connecting to Alumni Drive. Is that Alumni Drive or Andrew Jarvis? Andrew Jarvis. So that's what we show. We've updated C9 and C10 to show that connection for the request. The next comment is, please correct plan callouts to be fully visible. C7 lower right corner. So C7 indeed, there's a label that's cut off. The label says proposed pavement. That label is shown clearly on other plans and not really important to the calculation of open space. Number 5, space identified as wide sidewalk does not qualify as a wide sidewalk. Understood. Community space needs to meet the definition of community space. Understood. So the plan, community space plan, has been updated. It's in your package as C8, 4 sheets in. And so what we've decided to do was have 3 separate areas. Starting from the top right of the page, there's a blue wide sidewalk area, which is basically the connection from the bus stop into the site, but we're adding bike racks to make that a community improvement. Then the yellow space is an outdoor dining cafe, so that will be space that is open to the public, that will have tables and chairs. The adjacent restaurant can also use it, but they can't exclude the public. And then we've created in green a pocket park, and we thought that the pocket park fronting on Ledgewood would be most appropriate. It is somewhat onto the Ledgewood Drive city property, but that helps to identify and make the park more robust. And Terrence Parker has issued you a concept plan. You know, if you want to speak to that, Terrence, just what you're creating here briefly.
Yeah, so the Pocket Park plan utilizes some of the paths of the existing sidewalk that are being removed. So you can see the L-shaped sidewalk that remains, and then that sidewalk actually continues up to the access road toward Lafayette. But we're removing that sidewalk, but on this plan, we create that former sidewalk bed as a lawn path that connects to a sitting area that has direct ADA access to the sidewalk on Ledgewood, and then it circulates back down to the existing L-shaped sidewalk that we keep in place. So there's a circular lawn path, so it's, I like to create circular pedestrian movements so that you can meander around in that park in a circular fashion with a sitting area with benches, and then there's a row of street trees adjacent to the Ledgewood sidewalk, and there'll be, full understory plantings in all of the planting beds. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So this is a pocket park community space type?
That's what we think.
Yeah, it fits all the descriptions of the pocket park.
Yep.
Yep. And there's a gas line going through there. There's overhead utilities that are closer to the building, and there's some drainage lines that, I tried to avoid all that stuff with the tree locations.
Yeah, that looks good.
So in the C8 community space plan, so the area of that green is 3,800 square feet on site. And it's also 2,146 square feet off-site. But if you add up the wide pedestrian sidewalk, the pocket park on-site, and the outdoor dining cafe, we have community space of 6,251 square feet, which is 6.4%. So we would be asking for that 6.4, where 10% is the requirement. But the planning board is is able to lower that standard. And then if you included the off-site part of it, which I don't know if we can or we can't, Peter, but that
Where's
would bring
the
it up to.
off-site?
Yeah, the off-site part.
So the property line.
Oh, sorry, yep, got it.
Yeah, that would bring it up to 8.5%.
That's wide. So are we just asking questions as we go here, is that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the pocket park, I think, looks good. That is a question we're going to have to explore a little bit about the off-site, but I think it's still, you're asking for the relief on that.
Yep.
The wide pedestrian sidewalk really just talks about the sidewalk, so what's the other blue space? The bike racks, I suppose, could be thrown in there too, but it's, how do we make that more of a, it's hard to bring the blue area that's not on the sidewalk to think of that as a wide pedestrian sidewalk.
So, yeah, we would need to shorten that.
Just, yeah.
Or to add something else to it, is what you're saying, yeah.
Or connect it as a pocket park. I mean, if you could make the connection,
Oh, yeah.
just call it all a pocket park.
That's an idea, sure.
Is there a reason that this area is excluded, or is that? Looks like there's some plantings, but
Yeah.
on part of the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
No, I
Looks
think
like it
that,
shows up on
I think we
Terrence's.
need to
Oh, it does.
expand Terrence's. Terrence
Okay.
expanded it, but I think if you look at the area that's below the sidewalk, it's probably about equal to that area above. So we'll make that correction, too. And I'm a little bit, I know that if there's going to be an outdoor dining cafe that's open to the public,
I was going to ask about that. So this courtyard, is that what you're talking about? A courtyard, or are you talking about the outdoor dining?
it was a
It's out
courtyard
here.
before, but that didn't really fit
Oh,
that definition.
outdoor dining cafe,
So-
sorry, yep.
Yeah, no, it's outdoor dining cafe, so.
So how is the public going to know they can, or feel comfortable, will they feel comfortable going on there, or are they going to feel like they're eating in a restaurant with their,
Which one are we talking about, the yellow area?
The yellow.
No, the yellow area would be intended, that would pretty much only be public.
so the people that live there want to eat outside, they could bring their lunch down?
Yes, they could.
Okay.
Yeah, because the reason we've done it that way, so that it's successful doing it that way, is not making it coexist with this space that we've carved out, that you'd have alcohol
That's
and
the,
would be open.
that's the restaurant.
That's the restaurant.
Yep.
So that would be open to the public, but liquor and not, public just couldn't come in with their Dunkin' Donuts bag and sit there.
Sure.
So we've carved that out. The yellow is intended. That will be open seating. You can go anytime you want, bring your lunch. We're not regulating
Yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, that makes sense.
On,
So,
go ahead.
I mean, the part of that is, I think, about this community space, which is including the way to get there as part of the square footage. Would that not make sense? It doesn't fit a definition, but how do we handle that?
You mean if you connected these two spaces, or?
Well, if you see that the Lafayette Road sidewalk connects to the front of the building, which then would connect to this space.
Right.
Yeah, I think if maybe making the connection, because there's an entrance here, right?
Not now. We could make an entrance at that end, I guess.
Yes, we could.
If we wanted to, yes. We can make an entrance at that end, and that's how it could be connected.
And they probably could widen. How wide is your wide pedestrian sidewalk? 10 feet?
So the sidewalks now are 6 feet wide. But the area that's behind them is landscaped and, I know your ordinance says it has to be a certain width, and
I think it's 10, isn't it 10?
it
Yeah.
depends.
It's 10.
You
Is
could have
it-
an 8-foot pedestrian corridor, which you might be able to justify. There's 10-foot and there's 12-foot. It depends on the length, I think.
Is this a landscaped area in front of the cafe, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Between the sidewalk and the outdoor cafe is landscaping.
And if that extra 4 feet has to go in the landscaping, that's, we do that. If you have to be 10 feet sidewalk, you have to be 10 feet sidewalk.
Well, it's a way to get more sidewalk, more wide pedestrian sidewalk in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Do it. We'll represent that.
And then I think, it's a reduction in the amount. You're probably going to have to say what's on your property and then explain what's off, but it makes a better case for reducing it because you're providing more,
Okay? Yep.
but it's in the right of way. So that's what I don't,
Right, but if the planning board, as you know, they can decide to go either way. I mean, they can provide a waiver to either number.
no, I know that. I'm just wondering about the rights in the right of way and what if the city will give up that right? I mean, how are we going to figure that out?
To do that landscaping, you mean that part of the thing? Yeah.
Or if it needs that right of way. I don't know that they will, but.
So I think it's similar to what happened on Foundry Place, where the developer agreed that they would install and maintain the landscaping.
That's what it'd have to be. It'd have to be an agreement and an easement
Yeah.
that goes with the community space anyway.
Exactly.
So you have to make sure that.
Exactly.
That works.
Yeah, we would represent that, and we would suggest that's a condition from the
Yep.
planning board that
Okay.
be a subject agreement.
It makes sense with the layout there now, so if it became a easement forever, then it would have to stay that way.
Right, that's why the agreement would say that the city can do whatever they want or need to.
Yeah.
Any other questions about, or thoughts about the proposed community space? Okay. Is the courtyard space open to the public? And yes, the courtyard space would be outdoor dining cafe, and it would be open to the public by deed. Landscape plan and community space have different sidewalk designs. The landscape plan will have a minor update to the current sidewalk. I don't know who made that comment, but if you look at the last page, I think that's the only place where there's a variance is that entrance in the back along Did somebody find another place that wasn't the same? Okay. Please confirm that the ADA parking spaces in the covered parking meet the minimum width for ADA. And it wasn't clear, but I think that, my perception is that comment was on the lower level parking area. And the spaces that are on the right side do have columns, but there's 5 feet for the maneuvering space outside of the columns.
So the architectural plans handed out today are enlarged, and they have dimensions everywhere, so you can see that there are no conflicts. We also increased one of the regular spaces to a van space on the first floor by relocating the motorcycle spaces off of the loading zone. Motorcycle spaces aren't required, but we thought it would be nice to have some. In addition to a whole bunch of bicycle spaces, which we've added, more than are required. We have an updated parking count that shows the extra bike spaces offset against the existing parking requirements, and you are beyond, for the amount of bike spaces beyond what is required. So we have 65 bicycle parking spaces on site. We're required to have 27. So that extra 38 we have allocated as a credit, where for every 6 spaces of bicycles, you can deduct 1 car space up to a maximum of 5% of your requirement. So that is reflected here. The short summary is that we are, as was previously presented, we can deduct 3.5 spaces of parking that's required by our new addition, and we are subtracting 2.2 spaces, we're rounding down, for what is required by the existing restaurant. So the relief we're asking for, well, not relief, it's the parking spaces that will be allocated to the parking easement, which exists with the neighbor, Bolorama, is 10 instead of 11. So we're 1 space better than we were a couple of weeks ago. In addition, we have 3 extra motorcycle spaces. And again, the plans handed out today have everything dimensioned, so you can see the clearances around columns and the widths and sizes of the handicap parking spaces. We have 4 on the first floor, 1 of which is a van, and we have 3 on the basement, 1 of which is a van.
And please keep in mind that parking, that is a recorded easement that goes on the title of both properties. That was put in place when there was a heck of a lot more sharing, when there was a movie theater. There's plenty of capacity in these parking lots in there, so that's not an easement we need. It was a negotiated and well-documented easement for using all these parking lots to cross over.
So moving on, next comment was please assign tandem parking spaces to units and confirm they conform to section 10.1114.33. So the tandem spaces will be assigned to the units during the final building permit plan process. But in the meantime, we added note 10 on sheet C3 and note 5 on sheet C4 that delineates this requirement. So noting that, yes, the tandem spaces do need to be assigned to a particular unit. And please note, if it's not clear, the PB1 that Tracy handed out at the first floor level, on the left side of the page, those spaces are numbered individually because they're not tandem spaces.
access from
The
those sides.
access from the outside, so the row that's on the side of the building is access from outside the building. And the row, second one in, is access from the aisle inside.
So is it just the ones on the right then?
Correct. And it's just a few of them that are labeled AB, because similarly, down below in the loading area, you can access the parking spaces 49, 47, 45, 41, et cetera. Just to be clear, And apologize, the civil plans do need to be updated to this latest parking layout, which will be done. Please include all levels of parking, interior and exterior, in parking plan. So what I'd like to do is keep the site plan, which is the ground level, and keep the lower level parking plan. But I added a sheet C13 to the set, which shows everything on one page. So I would update the parking, and that way the planning board can see with one page everything and see the totals. And we probably have room to add all the parking counts there too. Hopefully that works going forward. And as I said, those will be updated and reflective of the fully dimensioned final parking layout. Please include designated ADA spaces in parking calculation table. If Tracy updated that.
It's shown on the plan. It's not on the chart. We will add it to the chart.
You just want it broken out, 73 parking spaces or 70 plus 3 handicap? Is that probably what needs to be done? Right?
We will
And
do
I
that.
think you can, the number of spaces does meet the requirements for each level. The next comment is site plan regulations 7651. In the maintenance for stormwater devices, remove if required. And that's to do with the annual maintenance report. So I attached a page, and I think it's simply in the report, striking out if required, which we will do. Problem? Next comment, please move the proposed transformer from its current location in the landscaped island. This will interfere with the infiltration of stormwater into the landscaped island. And that comment is reflective of the change on sheet C5. So I moved the transformer to the north. We eliminated one parking space. That's reflective of the
That's in the updated chart.
updated chart. So that transformer now is not in green space. And the coverage plan, which I did not print because it doesn't change, in the coverage plan, we only count that old area that is green. And the transformer area that we added won't all be transformer, but we're not counting any of it in the open space. According to 10.5A 44.41, in the zoning ordinance, you must provide one landscape island for every 10 parking spaces. Landscape island must be 325 square feet in area and be at least 9 feet wide. Please demonstrate compliance. So I'm assuming that applies to the parking that's along Lafayette Road, and we're not making any changes to that parking. So we would submit that we would like to keep that parking as it is now. Not changing any of that.
I think with that comment, you had 30 or more parking spaces outside along Lafayette, so that would have been 3 landscaped islands, and I just only counted 2.
that's not a 10-space island. 10-space island, that's 30 spaces means 3 islands kind of requirement?
Right, 30 spaces means 3.
All right, yeah. I don't know if we can count the island at the beginning between the sidewalk and the space as the third island.
I was wondering,
It's just, you know,
do you have any opinion on that, Peter? Because I was thinking about that too, the island all the way to the right by the bike racks. Would that be considered part of green space or the pocket park?
Not really.
Not
An
really
island not
breaking-
surrounded by water, right?
It's not really breaking up parking. It's sort of just an end cap there.
So what do you
They
got?
are end capped sometimes when they're not breaking up parking, they're sometimes breaking up travel ways and
For the green space in front of the entrance to the garage, do you know what the square footage of that area might be? Because that might be a way to count. It's wide, and I think 325 square feet in area.
yeah, I mean, 9 by 18, that's more than a parking space, isn't it? 325 square feet.
Yeah.
It's almost like 2 parking spaces.
9 by 18, that's a parking space.
Yeah, but the requirement, you said, has to be 325.
190.
So it looks like that's about 25 feet, or maybe more, by 6 feet. So we're a little short there. I mean, the net result is that you take out a parking space. And parking is,
Right.
you know, always desirable for these uses. It exists now. I guess the question would be, is it okay to exist now? If not, then we'll lose a parking space. That's your call.
Yeah, I mean, it was approved as a Tuscan.
Right, and none of that's changing, right?
No.
I mean.
No.
The only thing, as I mentioned, is I'm taking out a space to put the transformer over.
Yeah.
Right.
The rest all stays the same. Yeah, we would respectfully ask on that, just because we're not changing it, not to, would ask for a waiver on that then from the planning board.
We're not changing it. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we can ask for a waiver to the regulation. That would be appropriate. Okay, thank you. Yep.
we have the capacity, if the planning board decides they want us to take a parking space out, the cross easement, you know, there's,
We don't want to get rid of parking spaces.
yeah, I'd prefer not to.
Okay. Next comment, no right-hand turn signs should be added to the detail sheet and locations shown on the site plan. We added the signs on sheet C3 as you exit first level parking, and we put a detail Z on B6. Does that detail work, Eric?
You said on C3 you're showing the signs? I'm thinking.
Yeah, they were on there. We had 2 people working on the drawing. I apologize. So the one that didn't have it got plotted. So it was right at either side of the exit. They were on there.
Yeah, on that side, yeah.
They'll get on there, yeah.
Okay.
That's where I put them, is one on either side of that exit point, and then referring to the detail on B6.
Detail is, which sheet was the detail?
B6.
B6, the last page.
Yeah, or you could do it with the, the graphic.
If you want an arrow.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about understanding the language
Okay. So we'll change it to an arrow sign.
with the circle through it. Yep.
Got it.
That's that. I have another question just related to that exit. Looks like there's a larger radius on the right-hand side than there is on the left-hand side. What's the reasoning for that?
Yep, we'll make the one on the left side a better radius.
Yeah, make it more apparent that they should be turning left and not right.
Yep. They got to come in too, though. I think it's 2-way inside.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
coming in. But we can adjust that radius.
Yep.
Provide summary of accessible parking spaces required and provided. Again, you're going to add that, maybe you should add a note that says required 3, provided 4.
Will do.
We'll do that. Show how new building sewer will connect to the proposed sewer service. So, actually, it's not the photos as much as the utility plan. We're showing a couple of connections to the sewer that would come down internally. So there's an internal new building sewer connection on the left or south side, and then there's another one that is on the side. So basically, the upper floor sewer would connect to that sewer line that's running down the length of the basement. And that final layout would be done in the building permit, final design of the architecturals. What is the proposed water demand and proposed flows to the sewer from the new development? Note 4 on sheet C5 details the sewer flow calculation. So we have an existing restaurants. There's 225 seats. And we calculated 10 gallons a day per seat. And that number checks with the water usage that has existed. There was a peak month of 80 100 cubic feet, and that comes out to 2,000 gallons a day. And then the proposed residences, I calculated 106 bedrooms at 80 gallons a day per bedroom, which is probably a little high, but we'll might refine that. But that would be 80 gallons a day, so the total flow is 10,730, which would require the sewer connection permit. Provide profile of sewer service. So that's the sewer service is internal, and I don't know if that's what was meant here. There's only a short section that's outside of the building, and if that's the desire. If you look at the photos I presented, there's a sewer connection example where sewer is run along the wall. There's pipe hangers coming down from the floor elevation, and then when it gets closer, there's supports coming up from the floor. You can see there's a pipe that exits through the foundation wall, and you can see a connection to the pipe. It's a horizontal, but it could also be coming down from the upper floors. So those would be detailed in the plumbing plans with the building permit. Is that answering what the need is, or is there something else we should do at this point? How will the sewer service be protected from cars and pedestrians? There would be bollards and shields. And we added a note on sheet C4 to detail that requirement. Non-buried sewer service subject to environmental conditions may require expansion joints. My understanding is probably that means where it goes in and out of the building. I think the sewer in the basement would be at a pretty constant temperature, but the pipe type and joint and grout selection for the through connections when we do the final building plans should address that issue. SDR 35 pipe may not be suitable for non-buried applications, and I think the photos show that pipe. It might be a different SDR, but that'll be part of the building permit. And MEP details of the interior design. Need details on hangers, cleanouts, and connections. Again, see the photos. We would detail that on the building permit plans. What is the proposed rate of the flow rate of the pump station? So on D6, I updated the pump station detail to show you the flow in. So on the right of the detail is hydraulic calculations. Proposed flow is estimated at 500 gallons per day, and I'm going to dose it 6 times a day, so it's 83 gallons a dose. I've calculated the storage, and we're going to size the pump to run at 20 gallons a minute, and that would be the flow rate from the pump station. What are the float elevations in the pump station? So I've added the invert in and high water, lag, lead, and base. All those elevations are in there. The pump drawdown is 0.83 feet. Details on the pump station. The pump stations show an 1.5-inch discharge, and the utility plants show a 2-inch pipe, so I've revised the detail. We're going to go with 2-inch pipes. And there was a note that we had the sewer service at 2 different sizes, so I've corrected that. The sewer service will be 8-inch. I think that is our submission on the submitted questions from the email. If you got any other questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I've got a couple questions. The B101, the parking plan on the level 1, where those the 5 parking spaces are up against the loading area, I'm just concerned that those people might not be able to get their car out if there's a truck in that loading. So how would you prevent that?
I'm saying if there's a truck there loading, then they have less access.
Yeah. I know I wouldn't want to come out and get in my car in the morning and find a truck there loading and blocking me in for half an hour.
Those could be made tandem, I suppose.
Yeah, they could go back to tandem.
But I would still leave it open just for convenience when there's not a truck,
Yeah.
which will be most of the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Good point.
So spot 41 there, it does look like the loading dock of the building cuts
That
into
corner.
its open.
Yep, we'll adjust that corner. There's no magic, there's nothing above it, it's open to the sky, so we can put that wall anywhere.
All right. So, did you have another for that area?
no, I was just wondering about bicycle and motorcycle and scooter parking space dimensions. I don't know if we have requirements on those dimensions or.
I don't think there's anything in the ordinance.
Okay.
I had a question on the tandem space dimensions, and I apologize if I missed it, but we have a requirement that the tandem spaces be 9 feet wide, and it looks like most of them, all of them, are only 8.5.
Okay. I was not aware of that.
So that's in that section 10.1114.33.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll make those adjustments.
Is that the section that talks about the dimensions of parking spaces?
Yeah.
Isn't there a caveat, though, about garage spaces, though, somewhere else that lets you go to 8.5? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but
Okay, I'm misremembering, sorry. Maybe it was the aisle width that can be less in the garage.
yeah, might be the aisle width. Yeah, so point C under that section is two parking spaces in tandem shall have a combined minimum dimension of 9 feet in width by 38 feet in length. It looks like the length is fine, it's just the width. And then this is more of a question for Eric. Can we have handicap spots be tandem?
I don't know about that. That's a good question.
The B tandem is an extra. It's above and beyond what's required. So we have 4 handicap spaces on level 0 of the basement, where only 3 are required. So that 4th one that's landlocked behind the other handicap space is a bonus.
So I guess those would
That's a
be,
good question, though. You mean,
they would be assigned to the same unit,
Yeah.
though. So maybe if, right?
And
Yeah.
So-
assign handicap parking
Right.
spaces.
But it's nice to have the tandems have both spaces be handicapped, because you never know if you're the first one in or not, with your other car.
Yeah, no, I get that. We just have a provision in the ordinance that says tandem spaces have to be assigned to the same unit.
It
And-
could be.
Right, but then we also have a policy that says tandem or handicap spaces can't be assigned units.
I think probably the
specifically.
required handicap space couldn't be assigned, but if it's
extra one.
assigned to a unit, it's just a larger space that
Correct.
the unit has, right? But as long as the required ones are not assigned, and you're only required 2, they've given 3, one of them just happens to be assigned. You know what I mean? Like, what if you
Yeah.
wanted your unit? Yeah, it's kind of an interesting.
I get that. I just want to make sure that we're consistent
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
way we do this, so that
Yeah, we had a
legal
problem
doesn't
at
get
another
mad at
site
us
with that.
later. Because that has been an issue.
So maybe if it's above and beyond the required number.
We'll look into that.
Okay.
Then I had a question about the bollards that would be used to protect the sewer line. Those would cut into the parking length of the space, right? Would that impact what we're considering the length of the space to have a bollard in it?
Where are we looking?
About what, the 288?
The sewer line?
The sewer line's running along the wall. Yeah, so it varies in height. So.
That kind of leads us into the whole profile discussion, because we didn't really know where it was in relation to vehicle.
Right.
Yep.
And,
I think it comes down to about 5 feet off the floor as it exits.
Yeah, so it's very little, if any, would be above everyone's hoods. I would still,
Why
I would
use a
contend.
shield?
Yeah, shield would be like, we have parking spaces all the time with downspouts and gutters and cast iron shields. Something that's off the wall, that's a bollard width or a cast iron of a downspout width. I would contend you're not parking that close to the wall anyhow. You would- That's very common downtown. We have the cast iron downspouts all over the place in the parking space.
I just don't know about being in a garage and being in a tandem space or,
Well, again, if we exit at 5 feet, 5 feet's above everyone's hoods.
well, most cars, not every.
So the 5-foot one would have a bollard. The other ones, when they're higher, would not.
Yeah, I don't know how our dimensional requirements handle bollards in parking spaces, if that's a consideration or not.
Right, I mean, we do put bollards in front of ADA spaces. But
Yeah, but they're usually in front of it, not inside it. Whereas these bollards would be inside the parking space, so you're restricting some of the use of the parking space.
okay.
So we have 2 feet of extra width across the parking spaces, so if we need to give 2 feet on that side of the building, we can scooch everything over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need to do that, yeah. Yeah, you got a 20 dimension up here,
Yeah,
right?
there's an extra foot on
And
each
a 20 on
side.
each side, so there's, actually, those spaces are 20, aren't they? Does
They're
that
held
line up?
off the wall by a foot as it is.
Oh, yeah.
If you need another foot, we can do that.
No, I think a foot
No,
would do
a
it.
foot does it.
Foot's gonna
Yeah,
do it.
One
they're
foot
held
will
off
do
by a
it.
foot.
All right, there
Yeah,
you go.
that's that dimension.
Splitting hairs, but, right? You got 20 and 20
Yeah,
on the top, because it's 100 wide, you got 20 at the extremities.
Yeah, the extra foot would do it. I could always cast in place, but I hate to do that. I can always cast a trough on that concrete wall and not have it proud of the wall. But we have the extra foot, so I'd prefer not to do that with the sewer main. We could just do a knockout. I'm sorry. We do a knockout in concrete. Plywood knockout that goes in, and your sewer line is not past the concrete. But since we have the extra foot, I think we'll stick with the bollard and represent it. It'll be the way that we have it right now.
Because then your knockout would have to be in
It do.
That
Oh,
is
yeah.
correct.
Absolutely. Which could make sense if we were coming down a travel lane or somewhere in a different
parallel.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to protect it because people do what they do. But in this case, it doesn't have any speed associated with it. So.
Just a note, the pipe in your photos are Schedule 40, not SDR 35.
Good call.
Other comments or questions? Matt?
Sprinkler system's going to be all from one feed for all three buildings, is that? I think so, yes. I think that's early in the process, we were talking about a second one, but I think it would be better to be connected together. We would kept the sprinkler room on at the existing location, it would be internal. Then there's a new sprinkler room as well. There's a new sprinkler room, yeah.
There's one new sprinkler room over on Building B off of Ledgewood.
Yep. So would there still be a riser in the restaurant that's there now? Would that still, and there's no wrong answer there, I'm just curious.
Help us out here.
Thank you.
Well, you still have the outside connection over there, probably, right? Yeah, which, I was going to address that too. So that fire department connection is going to be not very accessible anymore to us. So what we would probably do, and we often do in larger buildings, is we have more than one fire department connection, but they're interconnected. So if we have a fire on one side of the building, we can put a pumper on the other side of the building to pump the system out of the way of operations and whatnot. So we're probably looking for that. We can deal with that in the sprinkler plan. But associated with the location of that is a hydrant, and I don't see any yard hydrants, either existing or new. You may want a yard hydrant.
We'll agree to add a yard hydrant, add one to,
Yeah, a real hydrant.
You want an actual hydrant,
Yes.
and not a little flushing hydrant.
Not a flushing hydrant.
Call it a yard.
we agree to that condition, to add that.
We can figure out the location.
Exactly.
Because it works, but I'm kind of thinking.
And of course, you would need a hydrant maintenance agreement to go along with said private hydrant.
You refer to it as yard hydrant. Probably are. That's all I have. You know where the street hydrants are? Yep. Off the top of your head? You got a map right there, yeah.
There's one over out in front by the bus stop.
Oh, yeah, there is, I see it right
Yeah, it's
there,
probably
yeah. So
closest.
wouldn't make sense to put another one in that, out there. It would be more like maybe tapping and putting another hydrant on the south.
On the back.
West corner. Sort of this side of the building, if we put a FDC here, have a hydrant maybe here.
Northwest corner.
Yeah. Northwest, so there's a hydrant there, up in northwest. Yeah, it could be either side, north this way.
Yeah.
So you're talking like over here?
Left side of the building. It's just there.
Yeah, on the left side of the building as we're looking at the plans.
Top left.
It could be the top left or the bottom. Yeah, top left, so you might be able to tap one off and put it easier top left, because yeah. There isn't a line running on the back, so.
I think if we depict one there, just with the note that final review of it and acceptance by the fire department, then we represent it and
Yeah, that's fine.
remove the locations.
Yep.
The only thing that hasn't been raised that I can think of is the parking on the DOT right away. I know it existed there before, but how does it exist? Is there
So,
any
I
agreement?
don't know if Eric's heard anything from the esteemed,
Oh, did you reach out to DOT?
I mean, is,
I'm ready for that question at the planning board meeting, and what I'm going to say is that, have you ever gone down Route 1A in Rye? You have, of course.
Yeah, I have.
Do you know that's a 100-foot right-of-way? And do you know how many parking spaces there are in Route 1A in Rye that have existed for a long time and still continue to exist? So it's not an
So there was
unusual situation.
There was no information with the last application that addressed it.
it's been there decades and decades and decades, and it's on the state's plan, the encroachment.
So that's what I provided, is when they did the redevelopment, it
They show
showed
it.
the encroachment.
On their state's
And
plans.
they didn't make them take it out. They had other notes about, realignment of driveways and taking land and they allowed it to stay. That's,
Yeah, just, we know it's an encroachment, and if the planning board, or if you felt that you condition it, that should in any event that not be the case, that would be some violation of the site plan and have to be corrected. But it's something that is there and has been there a really long time.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have some kind of documentation, just, as we go through the plans. We always are trying to, everything that's not on the property has to be documented, or easement, or whatever, so.
The documentation we would respectfully ask is the state's plan showing the encroachment.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
I think I put it in the record this time too, as part of the submission.
In your revised packet?
I think so.
Any other comments? I'm going to see if,
Yeah, it's in the supplemental material,
Okay.
the state highway plans with some color coded. Here's their right of way and here's where the pavement was when they did the reconstruction in the 80s.
Sounds like Vincent's in meeting. Is that Bing,
There's-
bing, bing.
City manager knows why I came through.
nobody's on Zoom and nobody is here, so I'll assume there's no public comment. And so what do we want to do?
I did have one further question.
Yep, go ahead.
Those 5 parallel spaces on the low basement plan, are those 20 feet? Do you know, have a dimension on those?
They're 19-foot spaces. Not dimensioned, we can have that dimension. They're 19 feet by 8 feet 6, and it's held off the wall by 5 inches.
Okay, thank you.
Is that required to be 20 feet?
I mean, the longer they are, the easier they are to use. I don't know what,
I'm looking at the stall layout. Is that the 0 degree column?
yeah.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
So that does say 20 feet in the zoning ordinance.
So they're 20 feet long?
It
Okay.
says 8 though. Does it say 8 by 20?
8.5,
It says 8.5 by 20.
20, yeah.
Okay, we'll make that adjustment. There's extra room. Up to that one.
And on the level 1 floor plan, is there anything to keep the, those 8 vehicles that pull in from the, under the overhang from pulling forward and blocking access to the bicycle scooters, those 15 spaces?
Oh, these. Oh, some sort of
So a
curb
row of
stop.
bollards would be appropriate, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Curb
Yeah,
stop.
curb stop or
Yeah.
something.
Curb stops,
Prefer
right.
curb stop.
Good point.
I think a lot of those, almost everything we've discussed right here we can do and are just corrections of notes. They're not like, we would hope we could just make those changes and proceed to the planning board with those conditions and notes.
There are a lot, you are able to address a lot of our comments. We just got these revisions today, and the community space hasn't been revised yet. We've still got work to do on that, it seems like. And we really don't like to send things to the planning board before we can wrap our heads around it, because we've seen that go downhill fast. So my thought is, I think you can address everything we've raised, but I don't think it's ready to go to the planning board yet, personally. But
You mean to come back here?
I think you should come back here with a complete set rather than bits and pieces and not really completed. Like, I don't know how you're gonna, what your number, even your calculation on what you're asking for relief on the community space, for them to waive. The issue about the parking spaces and the length of the parking spaces. There's a lot of details, and then a lot of detail was provided, and we have it, but we haven't had a chance to go through it, so I feel like it does need to come back.
I certainly don't agree with it, but
Understand I don't vote.
I agree. I would like to have more time to look through this, especially on, bicycle parking and scooter parking and dimensions, things like that.
Yeah. there's a
And
lot.
if the sewer does affect parking spaces at all, I would like to see more information on how that is happening.
Yeah. Are there other questions? I can make a motion if people are, no other questions.
That's all for me.
All right, well, I'd make a motion that we postpone to the next TAC meeting with the issues we raised and have it addressed for the next meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think it probably just takes one more time and getting everything right.
I should add before, it'd be nice, usually we see an easement plan with the easements you're gonna need for your community space before we send it to the planning board as well. So,
There's one in the packet.
yeah, but it'll have to be revised.
It has to be updated, but
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just
As long as that's up to
two
you.
things I have before you close this. One is I'd like to see a plan on where the landscapings are planned to be maintained. So some of the landscaping we talked about today is off property.
Right.
So I would like to see that, and specifically, I think the applicant should be taking care of this cross sidewalk that goes where the road used to be, because it's their landscaping that's from that sidewalk to their parking lot. I think they should be taking care of that section, not the section from the sidewalk to the road, because we have a maintenance agreement with Piscataqua to do
The
that.
sidewalk in towards our property.
But from the
That's right.
sidewalk toward the parking lot on the DOT, and then on Ledgewood Drive, all the way to the sidewalk area, should be in that area that's getting maintained by the applicant.
Yep.
Besides that,
Before you leave that one,
yep, go.
just, I can add that to the landscape plan,
Yeah.
as however it's licensed area, whatever they did, it's appropriate. I just don't know how I show that on the state's property.
It's just an area that you're agreeing to maintain.
Okay, so I
And
would
the
show that on
city
the-
would have to kind of sublet you that, because the city has an agreement with DOT to maintain that area.
Okay, so if you have an agreement, then.
We already have that agreement.
I can put it
so
on
we
a
would have
plan.
to work with
Yep.
our attorneys to allow that to happen. But I'd like to see that just from that sidewalk toward your parking lot, so that there's a clear differentiation where what should be maintained by what party.
Gotcha.
The second thing is the public realm improvements have to be ADA, so that needs to be designed. I noticed on the plan that got shown, there's some topography in there behind, on the side of the field, behind the Greek church's spare parcel. So that needs to be all ADA compliant. If it's for the public, if you're building it for the public, it has to be ADA compliant. So you just need to make sure there's a grading plan that shows that it's ADA compliant. Doesn't need to be paved, but it does need to be compliant.
And the superintendent's, where they're at.
So that plan's gonna need more detailing, I guess, at some point. And that's my only point on that. And then you'll have to add that there'll be a private hydrant maintenance agreement for this parcel, for the hydrant and hot water.
And I'm going to talk to legal about the DOT piece. There could be, issues with our legal department on that and how we're going to approve something like that. I understand it's been there and it's on a plan, but I want to make sure we're in agreement that it can be carried forward. But I think we talked about all those things. That's what we'll be looking for. And if you want to set up a meeting ahead of that, that might be helpful. Go over it.
I'd like to do 2 meetings, the legal meeting, and then
Yep.
take another whack at community space and
Great. Yep.
do it with you, so we're not coming here and
That'd be great.
it's up in the air.
So could I speak to the superintendent's letter? Because staff last Thursday communicated to us that it was not going to be an issue. They understood that we were in conversations with the superintendent's office, and today that has resurfaced in your memo that was provided last evening. Last month's meeting, there were a few items that you all brought up that have been addressed. We received a letter with 28 items yesterday, many of which were not in the conversations of last month. So I think you could see Mark's frustration. I think we're all kind of frustrated that the minutia that you're focusing on from last month to this month, are we going to be addressing that again next month?
Well, a lot of the stuff that was addressed is in the stuff you provided today. We want to take a look at that. I would say it's a very complicated plan, and you're asking a lot. And we're not going to send something to the planning board that isn't, it's the half-baked. There's still a lot of details that we need to work out. There's things that aren't necessarily complied with, like parking space sizes, community space, that trail. All these things are evolving, but if we send it to the planning board, then you have these back and forth to the planning board. We don't want to have that happen. So we'd like to get it to the planning board that we all feel comfortable that we agree on it. And I guess I don't, and I think, we'll see if the vote comes out, but at least 2 of us don't feel that way at this point. I understand your frustration, but it's not a simple project, and it merits the focus that we're giving it.
So may I ask one follow-up question, please? On question number 2, in regards to staff would prefer that it not be a donation for a public realm improvement. Is there...
I think the best thing to do is see what the school superintendent we need to see what they have to say rather than being represented, what the superintendent's wishes are on that plan.
But you're stating for the record that this committee is not in favor of that sort of an approach. Is that correct?
This committee is in favor of, as the superintendent says that they'd rather build it, and that's their stated position, then that's a different story. But what we want to see is that this plan gets built, and if you can get agreement to build it as you want to build it, then we know it's going to happen. So
And it needs to be viable.
And it needs to be viable.
And then to John's initial comments, where the school department is looking at their master plan, and they may choose to utilize funds on the high school property for something else that is public realm, does that also?
We'd have to look at what that is, because it's a public realm improvement that the planning board approves, so we have to feel comfortable that they'd approve it. But yeah, that could be an alternative. I'm not saying it's not. The cleanest thing would be if the school department, and the city manager, because it's city property, agree that this public realm improvement is something we want, and you agree to go build it. That's easiest, so that's what we're laying out. If you have an agreement with the school department and the city manager, and the superintendent and the city manager agree on a different plan, then, that's what we'll send to the planning board.
And has this committee had any communication or feedback from the school department in any way?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? All right, we are adjourned.